We've made it to another Monday, and to help you get through this upcoming week, I've prepared a monster just for you to unleash upon your players. It's another Monster Monday, the best way to start your week. This time around, we're touching on a monster tied to my own background, my own history, the farm-tending foe, the field Tarragon.
Thank God I'm a country boy.
Before we start our discussion on this dedicated dragon, I'd appreciate it if you could give the video a like and a subscribe to the channel. Getting right into it, the field Tarragon is fantastically depicted by Seth Monster, and is another in my line of flightless quadrupedal dragons. The concept for the Tarragons is that they developed alongside humanoids, and tend to embody or reflect aspects of their culture. This beefy beast of burden is intended to represent agriculture, and all that entails, including the domestication and rearing of animals. Given this relation, I wanted to use a lower level for the field Tarragon, and landed on level 6, putting it certainly higher than any farm animals it might live alongside, and able to defend them from most mundane threats, such as wolves and even bears. Obviously, the field Tarragon uses the dragon trait, but isn't really tied to any element or anything of that sort, so there's no other traits, and we can jump straight into the details. One of the ideas behind the field Tarragon is that more than anything, it's a hard, sturdy worker. I think the best way to represent this is through a constitution that is borderline extreme, sitting right between it and the high value for its level. To help in this work, the field Tarragon also has a high strength, and is knowledgeable about the nature that it often works with, benefiting from a moderate wisdom. Its remaining ability scores are all low. It isn't particularly nimble, it's got more down-to-earth common sense than actual book smarts, and it can be kinda gruff. In addition to helping with the crops and fields, the field Tarragon often watches over the herds or flocks on the farm, and with that idea I assigned it a high perception bonus. Its dark vision helps it keep watch at night. The intrinsic connection that it has with the earth sees it use an imprecise tremor sense. This is, of course, particularly helpful for detecting thieving rodents burrowing under the carrot patch. For its skills, athletics takes priority with a high bonus, as it directly uses that within its kit. Those skills related to its passion, its farming lore, nature, and survival all use a moderate bonus. It likely won't roll these much, if ever, but they're important to it from a lore aspect. This leaves its acrobatics, which uses a low bonus as the field Tarragon is a kind of a cumbersome creature. That cumbersome characterization carries on into its defenses as well, starting with only a moderate armor class. It's got some thick hide, but it isn't going to be dodging too many attacks. However, what it lacks in dexterity, it makes up for in constitution, and that comes through in its high hit points. This felt fine in the monster mash, it tanked a crit or two, but there's a part of me that wants to double down on its con and give it even more hit points. However, that might just be the intrusive thoughts. Our field Tarragon has a pretty standard array when it comes to its saving throws. It uses a high fortitude save based on its constitution, with a moderate will save not too far behind, given its moderate wisdom as well. The field Tarragon also uses a low reflex save, because as we've established, it isn't exactly a nimble creature. It's certainly not ducking or dodging any fireballs flung its way. Maybe my design in regards to a creature's offensive capabilities is a little lacking, as I just tend to use the same attack bonus for all the strikes. For example, the field Tarragon uses a moderate attack bonus for all 3 of its attacks. This dragon is envisioned as more of a tanky creature that will often serve better as a support rather than a direct antagonist, though it did certainly hold its own in the monster mash. Starting with its foot strike, it has the agile trait but deals only moderate damage. Its attack bonus isn't very high, but it does have a lot of power behind these strikes. Its horns have the raising trait and the deadly trait, which came up during the monster mash and deal high damage. This is its main bread and butter, and we'll see that a bit when we come down to its abilities. Before that, we do round out its strikes with its tail. This is its only strike that has any reach, and it deals moderate damage. I think agile is a bit more valuable than reach, especially when the field Tarragon lacks anything like reactive strike, but it does have the push action on its tail, letting the field Tarragon fling foes far from its farm. Springboarding right off of that push ability, we're going to talk about the field Tarragon's Hurl Bale reaction. This triggers whenever the field Tarragon critically succeeds at an attempt to push a creature, and is based on the classic manner of flinging hay over your shoulder with a pitchfork. This puts the target on the opposite side of the field Tarragon and leaves it prone, as it is literally hurled over the Tarragon's shoulder and left in the dirt. This is a great way to get it out of flanking without moving, or might just help reposition enemies. Now ultimately the Tarragon is a dragon, and what sort of dragon would it be without a breath weapon of some sort? Though I do suppose the field Tarragon's bolstering breath is a little unique, and it might be hard to call it a weapon at times. This covers a large area that causes plants to sprout and wildly grow, forcing creatures within the cone to attempt an extreme DC Fortitude save, since it doesn't actually deal any damage. This save is based on the defense needed to keep from being grappled, because that's what it ends up doing to people, leaving them wrapped up in roots and restrained on a critical failure. Characters can of course escape with a moderate DC check, because players were really struggling to get out even in an easy encounter during the monster mash. However, there is one other aspect to this ability. If the field Tarragon does this in an area that's already difficult terrain due to vegetation, the Tarragon turns it into hazardous terrain as well, dealing minor damage to creatures that attempt to move through it. The short cooldown is specifically designed in the hope that it can layer these effects over the area that it created to begin with. That might seem a bit odd since the normal effect of this ability discourages movement, but this does lead us into the Tarragon's next ability. The Earth Churning Charge is inspired by abilities like Powerful Charge, Sudden Charge, and other options like that, and in regular circumstances it's simply condensing actions. However, if the field Tarragon moves through at least 10 feet of difficult terrain, it rips up the cluttering matter to slam into foes, dealing an additional 2d4 bludgeoning damage. The average of this damage is a total of 5, and adding that to the average damage of its horns gets that up to extreme damage. This also removes the difficult terrain that it moves through.
This just in!
I just heard about the upcoming spell in the NPC core 500 Toads, which makes an area of difficult terrain out of 500 toads, and I love the idea of the field Tarragon charging through said toads and dealing 2d4 extra toad damage to somebody it hits. Now, in the case of the field Tarragon trampling through hazardous terrain, the damage bumps up to 2d6 and becomes the damage type of the hazardous terrain. This gives the field Tarragon a unique way to interact with the different types of terrain that it can possibly make, and that is something that I love when it comes to designing a creature. Making parts that fit together like a puzzle, or, the gears of a machine. Continuing on this concept, the field Tarragon has a roughshod passive ability, the toughened soles of its feet granting it resistance to the damage of hazardous terrain. This allows it to easily trample over difficult terrain caused by vegetation, ignoring it, and allowing it to better conduct its earth-churning charge. There's one final aspect to the field Tarragon, which is an aura. I've made auras a standard aspect of Tarragons, a through line of their design that links them together outside of their general body shape. Now as a farmer, the field Tarragon possesses a Tender's aura that empowers allied animals or plants within it. This is a pretty blanket buff, granting temp HP as well as buffing their attack rolls, saving throws, and damage rolls. Ultimately, this aura is a little bit different from the usual auras I've granted to Tarragons, but it fits with the concept of this caretaking creature. It also closes out the construction of this crop-creating critter. This fearsome farmer forces foes from its fields with ferocious flings and forceful flourishes, fully focused on fighting for and fostering its flora and fauna. It might be a bit hard to fit in a fight with a simple farmer dragon, especially if you actually have heroic players, but I've got a few ideas that you could probably make use of. For example, the farmer that the field Tarragon works alongside might actually be villainous and working towards nefarious goals that the heroes must put a stop to, only to run afoul of its draconic companion. A field Tarragon might also simply start making a farm in land that it doesn't actually own, forcing the heroes to intervene and either convince it to find somewhere else to move to, or force it to stop. Let me know what you think of this good old boy in dragon form and what other sorts of creatures you'd like to see in a comment. If you want to see the other monsters I've made, or the D&D version of this monster, check out the Monster Monday blog, which is linked in the description below, along with the Twitter, Discord, and information for Seth Monster. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.